I run Cedar Hollow Manor, a boutique inn tucked into the Vineyard Hills outside Asheville, the kind of place where guests learn to distinguish a Riesling from a Gewürztraminer before they've unpacked their bags. And I built every stone path and restored barn beam of it myself after my failed restaurant venture nearly buried me a decade ago. My mornings usually start with quiet coffee on the porch overlooking the rows of grapevines. But this particular Thursday began with my events manager, Priya, sliding a booking packet across my desk with the wary expression of someone delivering a verdict rather than paperwork. Priya explained that a company called Ridgeline Ventures wanted to buy out our entire vineyard pavilion for a Labor Day weekend gala, requesting our top-tier package complete with a private sommelier and permission to bring in an outside caterer. And when I asked who was behind it, she flipped to the guest of honor page and I saw the name Marcus Whitfield listed as groom alongside a bride named Celeste Duran. My pulse didn't quicken so much as it seized entirely, because Marcus was the business partner and fiancé who had walked out on both our engagement and our shared restaurant 7 years earlier, taking our investor contacts with him while leaving me to answer for the debts he'd quietly signed in both our names. I explained to Priya that the booking was routed through a consulting shell called Ridgeline Ventures, LLC, a corporate entity Marcus had always used to disguise personal purchases as business expenses whenever he wanted to dodge scrutiny from tax auditors or curious partners. And the paperwork confirmed my suspicion since the listed contact was a generic assistant email rather than his own name. I had spent years transforming myself from the broke, humiliated woman who slept on her sister's couch into the sole owner of a property Marcus clearly had no idea I even possessed. And something cold and clarifying settled over me as I realized he was about to hand me $200,000 to host the wedding he thought would prove how far he'd risen without me. I told Priya not to decline the booking because turning them away only sent Marcus off to celebrate his triumph somewhere else entirely oblivious to how close he'd come to reckoning. And instead, I had her approve the contract while quietly instructing our legal team to review a clause I'd written years earlier myself, a provision voiding any booking made under a shell company that concealed the true identity or purpose of an event. Marcus had never bothered reading contracts closely, even when we were together, and I intended to let that old habit become the very trap that would spring shut around him on his own wedding night. 2 weeks later, Marcus and Celeste arrived for their walkthrough, and I made certain to be dressed as ordinary staff. My hair cropped shorter and darker than the woman he remembered, standing near the pavilion doors with a clipboard while Priya led the tour, and Celeste complained loudly that the exposed wooden beams looked too rustic for the photographs she wanted to post. Marcus barely glanced at me twice, his attention fixed on his phone and the anxious murmurs of investors texting about quarterly numbers. And when Celeste snapped at one of our servers for arranging the wine glasses the wrong way, I felt the old fury I'd buried for years begin quietly stirring awake again. Over the following weeks, Celeste proved herself a connoisseur of cruelty, once ordering our newest server to remove and reset an entire table because the linen crease offended her aesthetic, and another time humiliating a housekeeper so thoroughly over a smudged window pane that the young woman came to my office in tears afterward. I filed away every incident methodically, cross-referencing them against the very conduct clauses I had drafted into our standard contract specifically to protect my staff from guests who mistook a large deposit for a license to demean people. And I began to understand that I wasn't planning revenge so much as simply waiting for Marcus and Celeste to indict themselves. The wedding night arrived thick with late summer humidity. The vineyard pavilion transformed into something genuinely beautiful, with strings of amber lights woven through the rafters and hydrangeas cascading from every centerpiece, and I moved through the crowd in a charcoal dress that made me forgettable to anyone who wasn't looking closely enough to remember an ex-fiancé from 7 years and 30 pounds of stress ago. Everything proceeded smoothly through the cocktail hour until Celeste, sweeping past a folding table near the kitchen doors, snatched a plate of appetizers directly from my hands and announced to the surrounding guests that staff eat in the back. Her voice carrying easily over the string quartet and landing on me like a slap I'd been half expecting all evening. I didn't argue or explain myself. I simply set down my napkin, walked to the kitchen, and told our head chef to shut down service entirely, informing the stunned catering staff that dinner was canceled and that everyone working that night would still be paid in full, plus a bonus for the inconvenience. From the control panel in my office, I raised the pavilion's temperature by a dozen degrees, cut the sound system after the best man's toast, and watched on the monitors as 200 sweating guests began fanning themselves with menu cards while Marcus frantically texted a phone number that would never answer him again. I found Marcus alone in the courtyard fountain area, his tuxedo jacket already discarded and his composure fraying at the edges. And when the string lights caught my face fully for the first time that night, I watched recognition crash over him like a wave he hadn't seen coming. "Hello, Marcus," I said evenly, watching him stammer through disbelief and then panic as I explained that Cedar Hollow Manor was mine, every vine and beam of it, and that his shell company booking had violated the very conduct clause his own fiancée had triggered an hour earlier by humiliating my staff in front of 200 witnesses. Celeste stormed out moments later, demanding explanations, her makeup already streaking from the heat, and when Marcus finally admitted through gritted teeth that I owned the property she'd been mocking all evening, her fury turned instantly and viciously on him instead of me, accusing him of dragging her into a humiliation she would never live down. Security escorted them both to the front drive within the hour, their luggage stacked neatly on the curb beside a fountain that had once seemed romantic and now merely reflected the flashing lights of the patrol car I'd quietly requested, while a bridesmaid's phone camera captured the entire unraveling for an audience that would soon number in the millions. By morning, the video had gone viral under a caption calling me the venue owner who ended a wedding with a single sentence. And while Celeste lost 2 sponsorship deals within 48 hours, my own reservation calendar filled up for the next full year with couples specifically requesting the owner who doesn't tolerate nonsense. I sat on my porch with coffee, watching the vineyard mist burn off in the morning sun, and understood finally that I hadn't been chasing revenge at all. Only the quiet, overdue satisfaction of watching my own standards finally protect the life I'd rebuilt from nothing. If this story of quiet justice and hard-earned triumph kept you hooked, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.